Recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Collins, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you being here, Mr. Attorney General. This is the first time you and I have had a chance to talk. I have listened here. One of the advantages of being on the bottom rows here, you get to hear everybody else ask questions and also hear your answers. And I think your answers today to me have been enlightening in some ways and very discouraging in others. And I think some of it is you have said on several times, and I'll go back to some of your statements today. You made a quote, and you were quoting, I believe, then President Clinton, talking about the era of big government is over and that good government will endure. I think the problem that I have here is that I agree with you. Good government should be a limited form of government. And I think what we've seen over the past week or so has really shook the foundations again of discussing this issue of limited government. When we understand this, and especially in your agency right now, as we look at this, you have said on a couple of occasions, I marked it down, you may have said it more if you did, so you started about the role of the executive. That's the role of the executive. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Is that a fair statement? You said that on several times today.
Yeah, I said that, but I think I was saying that in reference to who in the government ought to be deciding matters. And I
understand, but just the role of the executive, correct? And that's why, but there's a role for Congress, correct?
Absolutely.
And that's why you're here today.
Absolutely.
Because this committee has oversight over your department, correct?
I didn't show up here because I really wanted to.
Well, that has been and that has been painfully obvious in some of the way you answer some of the questions. So, I mean, as we come by here, the problem is, though, that's the checks and balances of this.
Absolutely.
That you come here, you answer questions, and we are of the constitutional oversight to have oversight, budgetary control and oversight of what goes on, and ask these questions. And these are not asking questions from up here, at least from my perspective. As I've made a comment before, the people of North Georgia, in the 9th District in which I'm from, many times they just want the truth. And they're frustrated right now that they don't get the truth, and they keep hearing other issues that come up on threatening to them and the very sanctity of what they believe, whether it be the IRS or the issues with the reporters or a litany of issues we've talked about today. The question that I have is this being the committee in which is oversight that you come to, and this will be maybe the first but probably not the only time we'll talk in this capacity, it concerns me the lack of preparation, or at least perceived lack of preparation, in which you come here today. And Ms. Lofgren from across South made a statement about did you put it in writing, and we've had this discussion about your recusal. And your answer to that was that I don't think I put it in writing. I'm not sure. Did you not think those questions were going to be asked of you today? That when you recused yourself from this, when you were actually, did you just not be asked today?
I didn't think about whether or not you were going to ask me that question at all, one way or the other, but I wanted to.
You're kidding me. You come to this committee today with these issues like they are right now.
Let me finish, Congressman. What I was going to say was that I asked my own people whether or not there was a
Mr. Chairman, can you make your ruling again on who controls the time?
Give him extra time.
The time is controlled by the gentleman from Georgia.
He can have extra time. Let me just answer the question.
Mr. Attorney, you don't control the time here.
I'm willing to give. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, but my question is this: as I come back to this,
Mr. Chairman, could the witness have a chance to?
The witness will have a full opportunity to respond, but the gentleman from Georgia has the opportunity to ask his question.
Mr. Chairman, just to make a point, the Attorney General stayed here extra time to make sure that everyone had a chance to ask their question. Considering the fact that he's still here past his time, why can't he answer the question that's posed to him?
He will get an opportunity to answer the question just as soon as Mr. Collins finishes posing his questions, and we'll give him extra time after Mr. Collins' time has expired, just as we have done for the Attorney General on several occasions.
Well, I'm glad
Mr. Chairman, may I just a moment? I would appreciate it. I know that some of us have deep bass-like voices, might sound that we're not being friendly and happy, but I would appreciate a little civility in the questioning of the Attorney General as we proceed to the conclusion. I yield back.
The gentleman from Georgia may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In opposed to this, I just have just a simple question. It was amazing to me that the question was, did you not think that you would be asked about maybe the timeline on when you might have recused yourself? Because you also said at one point you recused yourself before subpoenas, or it was that. There was some question even in your own dialogue about when you actually did this. So I'm just asking a simple question, and as the others on the other side, they've got to ask their questions. I'm now asking mine. Did you not think that someone on this panel would have asked you those questions?
I did not know whether anybody would ask me that question, but irrespective of that, I thought that was an important factor, an important fact, and it was one of the reasons why I asked my staff to find out irrespective of what was going to happen up here today, whether or not there was in writing a recusal. I asked that question myself, thinking that it was an important question. I did not know. I don't know what you all are going to ask me. So that's why I was saying I didn't know whether or not you were going to ask the question, but I thought it was an important one and one that I put to my staff.
In light of the impartation of my time, I do have one question on that regard. Have you recused yourself in using your recusal? Have you put that in writing before?
I'm not sure about that. In Mr. Holding's case, the Edwards case, I recused myself in that matter. I've recused myself in other cases because my law firm, my former law firm, was involved in those cases. I'm not sure that those are in writing, but I do think, as has been raised, I don't remember what Congressman, that putting these things in writing would, I think, might be the better practice.
Mr. Attorney General, I appreciate your answers to your question, and this is an issue that needs to be dealt with. It's just amazing. Again, as you have stated, there's a role of the executive.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Is that light red right there?
The gentleman's time was interrupted considerably by a debate over whether or not he was entitled to ask his question. So he can complete this question, and the Attorney General can answer it.
I said
and I did not interrupt the gentleman either from Louisiana in his question, so I just appreciate the opportunity to close. And the opportunity to close is I appreciate your answers. We're going to ask more of these questions, and these are the roles that we both, in your role and our role, play. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Well, that's fine. And I respect the oversight role that Congress plays. This isn't always a pleasant experience. It's one that I recognize that you go through as an executive branch officer. The one thing I've tried to do is always be respectful of the people who have asked me questions. I don't frankly think I've always been treated with a great deal of respect, and it's not even a personal thing. If you don't like me, that's one thing. But I am the Attorney General of the United States, and this is the first time you and I have met, so I'm certainly not referring to you or any of the questions you just asked. But I think that is something that is emblematic of the problem that we have in Washington nowadays. There's almost a toxic partisan atmosphere here where basic levels of civility simply don't exist. We can have really serious partisan fights, disagreements about a whole variety of things, but I think people should have the ability, especially in this context, to treat one another with respect. I've tried to do that. Maybe I've not always been successful, but I certainly know that I have not been treated in that way all the time.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. DeSantis, for 5 minutes.